What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Blazers Uprise post-game show. I'm Eric Brandt. I'm joined by Rich from Rip City Retro. Thank you so much for joining me today, Rich. How you doing? How did you feel about the Blazers getting a victory today for your appearance on the show?
It's about time. I think this may actually be the first time that they've won since I've helped you guys out with the stream. And, of course, to celebrate, I brought a Mountain Dew. Truth be told, if we had lost, I would have had, a Mountain Dew to soothe me. So one way or the other, I mean, this was making an appearance on the show. But it was great. It was great to be able to talk about a win today.
Is that audio better, everyone? I think I accidentally turned on two microphones at the same time. Does that work for everyone? Is the echo gone? Okay, great. So Tori, for those that don't know, is on vacation this weekend. He's down in Bend. He tried to stream for the post-game show on Friday. Unfortunately, he didn't have the best internet connection, and his voice was cutting in and out and stuff, and so it wasn't going very well. And so he's driving. He was waiting to watch the end of this game, and he is currently going to be driving back from Bend to home, so he is not able to make it today. But thank you to Rich for coming on and joining me today, so I didn't have to do it solo again. Alex R in chat says, you guys ready for the 47-game winning streak? That would be pretty awesome to watch. Yeah, vibes are much better today than they were on Friday, I guess, right, Rich?
Yeah, totally. And hello to everybody in chat. With
yes.
my eyesight and stuff, I see some hi Rich and stuff like that. It's great to see you guys. I'll later go back and read all your comments when the show is over. But if I miss anybody's comments, it's just great to see everybody.
Yeah, and why don't you, before we get started, let everyone know about your channel and how they can find you and all that.
Sure. So my channel is Rip City Retro. It's been a little bit quiet lately. Truth be told, my hearing has not been great, so it's been causing me tons of trouble and headaches and things like that. But when Eric put up the giant idiot symbol in the sky on Friday night and said, "Do you want to do the show on Sunday?" I was like, "Okay, sure. I'll try to muddle through." But you can find me over at Rip City Retro. Eric comes on from time to time, but basically it's just, the point of view of a Gen X Rip City fan. Been a long time fan for 35 years. So, I try to help us find the comedy in what we're going through right now and some of the things that have gone on in recent years. Because I just think that's always a good way to look at life, is to find what's funny about it. So yeah, if you guys ever want to come over to Rip City Retro, I'm kind of looking towards this next week. I think I'll be able to, get back to at least once a week programming, that kind of thing. But yeah, anytime you guys come over, we're closing in on 700 subscribers there. I know that sounds very small, because it is very small. But if you guys will come over and subscribe to the channel, it would be great. It's always great to see familiar faces from Blazers Uprise comment on the Rip City Retro videos. And it's just always a blast to connect with Blazer fans, because like I always say, I grew up in West Virginia. So with the exception of my dad, who was just a really good sport to root for the Blazers, I was the only Blazers fan in town. So being able to talk to fellow Blazer fans this past year has just been great. So.
Yeah, we have a request in chat by Crime Stoppa to sing Silent Ayton live on the air.
Well, it's invisible Ayton at this point, right?
Maybe later.
By the way, I should say that. So I put out, if you guys were here a few streams ago, Tori and Eric were nice enough to in real time play my parody video of the sounds of Blazer Christmas from Rip City Retro, where I took a lot of classic Christmas songs and I changed them into, Eric just referenced, Silent Ayton. There was It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Last Year, so on and so on and so forth, just a lot of different songs. And people in the chat were saying, I want the whole album. Where's the whole album? Shut up and take my money, clown. Stuff like that. And so I went on the community tab of Rip City Retro And I said, do you filthy animals really want like a full length album? Like, do you want me to do this? And at first, we got out to the gates with like 80% yeses. And then once we got past Christmas, the no's overtook it, Eric. 13 to 12.
Oh, no.
No. Because when they were overwhelmingly yes, I felt the pressure to like, am I going to really have to do a whole album? And I wasn't opposed.
Jody got to your mentions and
exactly.
got
it was
enough
like
votes.
Joe Cronin, Chauncey, like they all went in and voted.
They got their burners out.
Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah. So that was fun when you guys were nice enough to stream that, and it was great to see everybody's reaction in the chat, like talking about this song is great. It seemed like everybody had a different favorite, which was really cool. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
It was phenomenal work, and I put the link to Rip City Retro in the chat there. So if you are liking seeing Rich and what he has to say, please go subscribe to that. It would really mean a lot to us if you went and did that. But anyways, let's go on to the game. So just a great win for the Blazers. They finally get a W. Outside of the San Antonio game where Wemby didn't play and they got somewhat of an easy win at home. It's been pretty rough with the blowouts recently. The effort levels have been waning. I felt like tonight, for the most part, or this afternoon, I guess, not the nighttime, the effort was much better on the rebounds, on defense. It wasn't the greatest defensive effort, but they were at least trying. You got to give them credit for that, I guess. Because the last few games, it seemed like they had been checked out. And some players that had looked completely checked out, like Jeremy Grant and Malcolm Brogdon, had fantastic games today, outside of a few ISOs from Jeremy and some bad spots. But
we'll get to that.
Other than that, I thought both of them played really well. Brogdon in particular, I love it when you have a player like Malcolm who just takes what's available. And I felt like Malcolm changed the game, obviously, with those two big threes. But they were double-teaming Anfernee, and Malcolm got a couple of attempts, wide-open ones. He knocked him down. And then he got another one where he drove to the basket and scored because the paint was pretty open for him to do so. It wasn't the normal dribble like 10 times and force up a bad shot in traffic. And that's I just feel like this team is so much better if we have those players still on the roster if they're not forcing shots like that. There was a play in this game. We went up 7 and they scored to cut it to 5, and we ran an ISO for Jeremy for like the last 20 seconds of the clock. He takes a bad shot, they get down in transition and score again, and within like 30 seconds they went from up 7 to only up 3, and then it was a battle the rest of the game. And I think those are the kind of possessions I don't really like. Now, Jeremy had a couple of possessions in the overtime where he took it strong to the basket, used his body to shield off a defender, and finished in the lane. But he got all the way to the basket on those. He didn't stop and shoot like a runner or a floater or a finger roll, like high arcing underhand shot. So I felt like he did a really good job in his opportunities in the overtime of taking it strong and getting to the basket. And then, of course, we have 2 monster performances that we have to talk about as well. I feel like Dwap Reith, he had a great game today. He was phenomenal, man. He both spacing the floor on offense, finishing inside, battling under the hoop for rebounds, getting a couple of fouls drawn on loose balls. And I thought he was a really big difference in this game. What did you think about Reith's performance?
I totally agree with you about Reith. He had that great 3-point play in the fourth. You know, it was a funny sequence. So there was the Smith dunk over Reith, and then
He
everybody was
got
going
posterized. Yeah.
crazy. Right. So he gets posterized. But what was cool about it, they came right down the floor, and he got the ball down to the post and just made a real nice, easy layup. I look for, like, you and Tori are so wonderful at X's and O's and breaking down plays like that. I really like to focus on the emotions of the game and seeing, like, what a player does when he's put in a position emotionally where he just got dunked on, just got embarrassed, or seemingly should have been embarrassed, and then comes right back on the other end and just makes a nice simple play to get those 2 points back. Like, little things like that are just really good, solid, professional things that you like to see sometimes in that situation. And especially when you have a player who, is trying to prove himself in the league and that kind of thing. That might be a situation where it's a hurried shot, a little, might somehow create a traveling violation and trying to up fake and things like that down there. And to just see Reith come right back and get the two, and especially for two old dudes like us, in playing pickup basketball, we all know, like, somebody comes down and makes a dunk, and then we come down and make, like, a little 10-foot shot from the corner, like, same amount of points. So,
Yeah.
but I agree with you on Reith. He's been really great to watch his development. I had a lot of high hopes for him, actually, when they brought him into camp. I mean, obviously, your World Cup play doesn't necessarily translate to the NBA all the time, but I just thought his ability to shoot the ball was really going to give him an opportunity to make it on this roster. And I'm so happy that we have him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he could shoot the three, but I've been most impressed with his finishing off of drives. I didn't think he had that element to his game where he could put the ball on the floor from the top of the key and get to the basket and finish with the left hand. And he's done that now multiple games where he's had a really nice drive and finish, and did it multiple times in this game. The one time he had a bad shot in that situation, he went back to his right hand and shot a shot he normally hadn't shot. It was more of like a hook shot spinning back to the right, and it was short. But like almost every other time he goes right to the backboard, he finishes really well. And so I was like, okay, like I didn't really know that he had that that ability to put it on the floor and get to the basket, but that's been a nice kind of bonus, I guess, from having him play there. And I think they can start exploiting that in the short roll as Anfernee sees the kind of defensive attention more often that he saw tonight.
Yeah, and I think, sometimes with these guys that are playing internationally, especially a guy like Reith, his game internationally may have just been, let me show the scouts what I can do from an outside shooting standpoint, whereas, like, he already knew he had that inside game, but he's like, what's going to get me noticed is my ability to stretch the floor, so on and so forth. So maybe, he exploited tried to float out there a little bit more during his international career. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I couldn't have been, I couldn't be more pleased with how he's been developing. I also think, he's got some limitations physically, but his effort has been really solid.
Yeah.
And, that makes up for a lot, obviously.
Well,
but
I thought his defense was really nice tonight too. I mean, he's not going to be able to get stops every time, just based on the way he's a little shorter, not the quickest guy. So it's more, you just have to be in the right position. But he actually had two closeout blocks tonight, one on a 3-point shot, one on a free throw range jumper by McHale. And those were two really big plays in this game. And I just thought he did a really good job of battling with Claxton and Sharpe. The other Sharpe, Day'Ron Sharpe, underneath the hoop, because those guys can be a handful on the offensive glass, and I thought he did a pretty good job The Nets finished with 9 offensive rebounds, which is still a lot, but it's good for us to hold a team under 10 offensive rebounds in a game.
Yeah, under double digit offensive rebounds is really good. I was watching the Nets feed of the game, and when Sharpe for the Nets went down, they just were saying Sharpe is down. Oh, he's hurt, and the camera did not go to him yet. And I'm just like, what? I'm like, oh no. And then they moved the camera to him, and then of course, I mean, you're immediately like, I hope he's okay. But for us selfishly, it was like, okay, it's not Shaedon. Like, I was just like, no, please don't let this be. Well, we have talked a lot so far with completely burying the lead.
Yes.
So I'm not going to take it from you. I have tons of thoughts, but please tell us what you think is the story of the game.
Well, Anfernee Simons, after 2 really bad games from him, the last 2 games from coming back from that illness, finally explodes and has a great game. And he scores 38 points on 25 shots, over 50% from the field. He gets the bonus of, I was thinking about this during the game, Rich. You know how almost every good scorer in NBA history gets like 4 points every few games just by getting the ball at the end of a game in a win and getting fouled and getting to go to the free throw line, right?
Yeah.
And so
Dame was great at that.
Yeah,
CJ too.
But you have to win to get that. So like it makes like last year for Dame even more impressive when we win less than, or we won what, like, I don't even know how many games we won last year, 32 or something. But like, it like we didn't have a lot of games where he got a bunch of free baskets at the end, right? Because of free throws, and so that also helps your efficiency if you're a guard a lot as well. So I was just thinking about that, like, man, we've had so many blowouts in some of these games that he hasn't been able to get any cheap baskets or cheap free throws. Doorbell.
I was gonna say, was that a doorbell?
Yeah.
Okay.
He hasn't been able to get any like cheap baskets, and that helps your free throw rate and all that kind of stuff as well.
Sure.
So tonight he gets 4 free throws at the end. I was so frustrated though in the first half. He still could not get a call. It seemed like, and I was getting frustrated for him because he had a couple of drives where he definitely got fouled and didn't get to the line. And in the second half, he draws 2 fouls, gets 4 free throws, and then gets those 4 free throws at the end. And that's like 7 points from the line. He makes 7 of 8. And so that's nice to see him actually get 8 free throws in this game and kind of pad his stats a little bit. But the most important thing to me for Anfernee tonight was not the scoring. It's obviously the attention he got from another team. And when you have that happen, you can... I mean, we saw this with Dame for years, obviously. But you have to be able to find people open, and you have to be able...
Yep.
The other 4 players have to take advantage of it. And that's why I was really impressed both with Anfernee passing out of those double teams, recognizing where they were coming from. One time he made sure he drove left really quick when he saw the double team coming from the right. Another time he saw the double team come to the left and pass to Brogdon on the right. So he made a lot of really good decisions out of that. Had a couple of turnovers, but for the most part, I thought he handled it really well. And he had 11 assists tonight, and that's the number more so than the 38 points. Those 11 assists, I think, are really crucial in his development as the lead guard of this team. And I was just really impressed with some of the passing he made. And players like Scoot in the first half hit a couple of threes off of kickouts. Malcolm, obviously, we'd already talked about hitting those couple threes both off Anfernee passes. So it's good to see players hit those threes too on those kickouts.
Yeah, I thought Anfernee really impacted winning tonight, for those that don't believe in that. But I just thought he had a 6-minute stretch there in the fourth from about the 10-minute mark until the 4-minute mark where he either scored or assisted on every basket that the Blazers got. Watching him in the fourth, the word that came to mind, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I always try to be as honest as I can be, whether it's good or it's bad. But I thought in the fourth, Anfernee was just masterful. Mm-hmm. I felt like his decision-making was absolutely perfect. He shot when he should have shot. He passed when he should have passed. And his playmaking ability is getting to a point now where guys, kind of like what you talked about with Malcolm before, guys are not having to do a whole lot when Anfernee puts them in a position to get the ball on a kickout. Like they're in the proper position, ready to shoot. He's finding them in good shooting pockets. I just thought, I don't know necessarily what we would characterize as Ant's best game, but watching this game, and especially watching him in the fourth, I was like, I don't think we've seen Anfernee ever play more under control, have like such a mastery over what was happening in the game. Now, obviously, the Nets blitzed him hard a couple of times in the fourth and got the ball out of his hands late. But for the most part, I mean, I just really felt like whenever the ball was in his hands and he was making decisions with it in the fourth, I just thought he had an amazing game. I was really, really thrilled for Ant to have a game like that today.
Yeah, and it's even more impressive when you see or you noticed how far up they were double teaming him, how much attention they were paying to him. So
I mean, it looked really familiar.
The fact that he not only did that, but did it in a scenario where he was being double teamed almost every time down the court by some really good defenders too, with McHale, Dennis Smith Jr., Claxton. All those guys are super nice defenders. So very, very impressive. So Torrey made the overlay right before he left Bend, and so that's it. I just noticed it's wrong. It says Simons 35 and 10. He actually had 38 and 11. So he shortchanged him a couple. But yeah, that's why it's wrong on there, and I can't fix it right now. Okay. But if anyone was wondering,
can we talk about a significant statistical achievement today?
Yeah.
Okay. After averaging 1 rebound per game for the last 3 games, okay? Jeremy Grant heard all the naysayers and all the flack and all the attention and said, "You know what? Screw this. I'm going to play big today." And he got 2.
Yeah, 2. He doubled. To increase your rebound average over the last 4 games by 0.25% or 0.25 rebounds. I'm sorry. I thought was just a phenomenal achievement. And I even think one of those rebounds was he was fighting for the loose ball and then it ended up being batted off of his hand. So I don't even know. I mean, he never really had that rebound, but I think he got credit for it. So, yeah, that was that one. It was late in the fourth quarter, I think. And he actually didn't box out on that play, but it just happened to bounce all the way out to him, and he still couldn't grab it. But yeah, it was pretty funny.
I couldn't believe it when I went to the stat. I was just like, he is an anomaly. I cannot remember a guy that I followed in the league that was like, because even guys that don't necessarily want a defensive rebound, if they're scorers, they'll typically hit the offensive boards pretty good. And, Jeremy's so lengthy and things like that. But I've never really seen anything like it. So it was just funny to me to see him get 2 rebounds today.
Yeah. Great stuff from Jeremy.
Hey, can we? Do you mind if I bring in one more positive thing?
Yeah.
Let's talk positively. Chauncey 2 for 2 on challenges today.
Yes, Chauncey.
Great.
All right. Yeah. I mean, we got to talk about fourth quarter late game.
around the 4-minute mark, the ISOs that
Well-
drive you a little nutty.
Well, actually, outside of that one Jeremy possession, and then there was, I don't remember if this was within the last 4 minutes or not, but there was those back-to-back possessions where Jeremy dribbled it for a while, didn't get a shot, and passed to Ant with like 1 second on the shot clock, and he had to heave a long one. And then the very next play, Ant dribbles around and can't find anyone, and the shot clock, I don't remember, it ran out, or Brogdon shot a long three or something. But yeah, it was 2 possessions in a row where we fought the shot clock and then passed with like 1 second left and made the person take a horrible shot.
And Jeremy had that one bad possession that led to a breakout for the Nets, and they scored.
Yeah.
And then he had another bad ISO that would have had the Nets on the break again, but that's when Sharpe for the Nets got hurt. So that stopped play. That was like right around the 3-minute mark. Chauncey took the use it or lose it timeout with like 3:10 to go or something like that. Mm-hmm. I think the FBI's at the door again.
I'll be right back. Rich, you talk.
Okay. We've got a bad echo. Chat, do you hear that? Oh, no. I think... Oh. Hi, chat. Maybe I should just sit here and not really talk all that much so you don't have to listen to the echo. It's not too bad right now. Shh. Be quiet. Eric's dog. Yeah, that's right. I said it. You heard me. You stop tap dancing. I'm going to try and lean in and see any chat comments. FBI, yeah, seriously, guys, don't swat Eric. That'd be horrible. Don't do that. Eric, when you put the headphones down, we had a little bit of an echo, so I was kind of saying nothing.
They said there was no echo on the broadcast. It was just for you, Rich. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
The one person I shouldn't have an echo for.
but no, I mean, I really didn't add a whole lot to that. I mean, those couple of ISO possessions by Jeremy, especially after Ant had such a great 6 minutes where he scored or assisted on every bucket. I was a little concerned that we were going to go old school vet ISOs for the rest of the game. And then we didn't do that. And, something that you made me think of when you talked about how you like when the vets are able to take advantage of playmaking for them and then they can score. That's really good training and really good reps for your young players, because you can find guys around the league who you can park in a place to be able to finish shots and make shots and that kind of thing. So those kind of reps, when Brogdon is getting a kick out and hitting a couple of threes in overtime, so on and so forth, those are good. Those are good reps that help Shaedon, help Ant, help Scoot, even though Scoot wasn't in there late. But those kind of reps are really good. It's the ISO dribble for 20 seconds and then still make something happen for Brogdon or Grant that really doesn't help our young guys. So, yeah, it's not about we don't want to see Jeremy score 27 or we don't want to see Brogdon have a good offensive game, but it's the way that they're able to support Ant and Shaedon and things like that. That's why I thought today, especially in the second half, that's why I thought today was just a really good blend of the old and the new, and that's why I was so happy with today's game.
Yeah, I completely agree. So obviously we get the win, so if that's the goal, this is probably a good decision. But what did you think of Chauncey's decision to go with Malcolm in the fourth quarter and overtime and leave Scoot on the bench for pretty much the whole fourth and overtime?
Yeah, I mean, look, especially when you've got the offense all running through Ant at that point. Scoot had 30 minutes today, I think. I was okay with it. This wasn't one of the more egregious, why isn't Scoot playing more? And again, the way Brogdon was really being used was off ball, Ant penetrates, creates, and then kicks it to Brogdon. And if you're trying to win a game, and also, we should probably say the way things have been going lately, with some of the blowouts that we've had and the poor efforts, I think even though wins in and of themselves are not important this season, and in some ways you could look at them as a detriment actually from hurting your draft position. I do think it's important, especially when you find yourself in a game or when a game is within reach, especially if you've had some effort issues lately. I think to give the guys something to feel good about, it's not stunting the growth of Ant and Shaedon. I mean, now you could argue, okay, Scoot could have really used those minutes in the fourth. But at the same time, I feel like from a morale standpoint, it was good to keep those guys in, leave Malcolm in, because Malcolm is filling a role that he's going to be much more superior to Scoot in terms of just kind of being a spot-up shooter to help Ant with some of the gravity that was going on the court. So I was okay with it. I mean, but what about you? I mean, you posed the question. So did you have a problem with it, or were you okay with it?
I mean, in this season, I still feel like we need to give Scoot those reps, and I do think we need to
That's fair.
Live and die by what happens with him out there learning in those positions. But in this particular game, I felt like with the way they were defending Anfernee, it was going to be tough to space the floor with Scoot. He had one drive in the second half where he got to the rim pretty easily and then completely airmailed the ball off the backboard. It didn't even come close to going in. Had a couple of drives where he went right into their big and got blocked. And so he wasn't really, I mean, he had a couple threes, so that was good. But I felt like at the time he put Brogdon in, it was the right decision. And I also, I hope that this isn't even a question here in a few weeks as we move closer to the trade deadline, because Malcolm shouldn't be on the team anymore, and we should have assets or an even greater collection of assets from moving him. So I didn't mind it in this particular game. I think it was good for the team to get a win in a game.
And it's probably good for his trade value too.
Yeah,
performing in a game like this, a contender can look at that and say, "Hey, we want that."
Yeah, and I don't think his value is going to increase or decrease too much, other than if he gets hurt. So maybe maybe that's a reason to not have him play, just so he can not get an injury right now, because that would be devastating if he gets hurt and is out for the year.
I want to see Malcolm come into the game and check in at the scorer's table just taking bubble wrap off.
Yeah.
And putting it back on to go to the bench.
Right. Or maybe he should wear it on the court and then take it off when he goes out.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's the only thing, like, because I don't know what would be happening right now in terms of if Robert Williams wasn't hurt for the year. Like, if it was an injury, he was still possibly going to be coming back, where we could possibly move him to a contender for the playoffs, if he'd still have some value there. So any kind of major injury to Brogdon right now would be devastating, considering, I don't know if you heard some of the rumors today, but apparently
I didn't hear
Orlando Magic are now hot after Malcolm Brogdon. They want him to steady their backcourt and provide some shooting for them. And there's of course.
Okay. So here's the problem with crippling tinnitus or tendinous. Okay, I thought I heard you say they want him to study their backcourt. So like the Orlando Magic have already told Malcolm Brogdon, hey, start looking at our plays because we're gonna trade for you.
Yeah, and that's just added to the other. There's a lot of teams that could use Malcolm. He's a really steady guard.
Steady, but steady's the perfect word for Malcolm, really.
Yeah. So get that bidding war going. And then also New York is having some success now with OG. They've won every game he's played in. They might hopefully, and I don't think they should do this, but they might start to think that instead of needing to trade all their assets for a star, they are closer than they really are to contention, and think a guy like Malcolm Brogdon could help get them there versus giving up like 5 to 7 firsts for Donovan Mitchell or something, you know? So if that continues to be the case, I think that's a good sign, because I think New York will want to do a smaller move and might even give up 2 firsts to get a guy like Brogdon to help them out, because it's pretty clear in the East right now. You have Boston, of course, at the 1 seed, and then you have Milwaukee, which is weird, and Philly, who's gotten blown out 2 games in a row. So neither of those teams look great. And then there's that tier of teams right behind them that are all basically tied with each other, with Cleveland, Miami, I think Indiana's right there. There's one other team I'm missing, New York. There's a tier of teams right there. Oh, the Magic as well. Those are all teams that think, why can't we at least be the 4th seed, right? So like all 5 of those teams think they are in position right now to get up to that 4 seed at the very least. If they make a really good move here, they could potentially give Philly and Milwaukee with their struggles some problems, and maybe move up to the 2 or 3 seed and avoid the Celtics until the conference finals or whatever. So I think all 5 of those teams are going to look to make moves, and we have players that make sense for pretty much all those teams. Now, of course, I don't think Cronin and Pat Riley will do business, so I think you could probably scratch Miami off of at least the Blazers being their trade partner. And the Cavs are kind of in a weird situation asset-wise. They don't necessarily have a ton of young players or picks outside if they wanted to move Mobley, which I don't think they will. But if they wanted to, sure, we'll take Evan Mobley from them. But the other teams, the Pacers, they've been linked to Jeremy Grant. The Magic now have been linked to Malcolm Brogdon. And New York's, of course, been linked to Brogdon as well. So if Pascal Siakam ends up in a place other than one of those 5 teams, especially if it's the Kings or the Warriors or a West Coast team, that's going to ramp up the trade value, I think, of Malcolm and Jeremy even more. And it'll be very interesting over the next few weeks leading up to the deadline.
I totally agree, Eric, but we have to ask the most important question of all. Where do those players want to go?
Oh, okay.
Because that's the most important thing.
Right. I'm guessing they both want to go.
We would want to do right by them, right?
Yeah, I don't know where Brogdon would want to go. I think New York would be a good situation for him. I'm not sure if he likes New York or not, but I think that's a really good spot for him. I think, Jeremy would be, and Malcolm would both fit well in the Lakers. Now, I don't know about wanting to help the Lakers out, getting out of their funk, because they've been...
I thought we were talking about contenders, though. Lakers are just garbage right now.
Well, in Jeremy's case, does he necessarily have to be a contender? I think he's...
No, absolutely not. Doesn't care. Yeah.
But I still don't know if we're gonna trade him or not. I think we might keep him, but
really? Are we back to that again?
Jeremy, at least. We won today, Rich. We're gonna reference that 1-game winning streak against the Nets here after the trade deadline as seeing the potential of this team if they just stick together. And what would you think about hearing that?
all of the Jeremy talk of keeping him, I just always hope and pray it's just an effort to raise his trade value, get teams to offer a little bit more. I mean, what is Jeremy, 29 now?
Yeah, somewhere around 29, 30, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, timeline just doesn't match up. So
right.
What
Well,
else? What did you?
Well, I just
Go
want to
ahead.
know what you would say if they, let's just say they win the next game and win 2 games in a row, and Joe Cronin references that they played really well for a stretch. Like what would you say to them?
I mean, probably nothing. It would not surprise me at all. It's weird. It's weird because, I feel like, the chat and internet and all that kind of stuff just kind of being introduced to me within this last year in terms of talking Blazers anyway. Um, I might seem just like super negative on the team or anything like that. You know, I'm not. I love to see the guys do well. I loved when we got Jeremy Grant. I like the positive things about Jeremy's game, and there are times where I wish Jeremy would have been a part of the team back, like in the Aminu Harkless, I mean, not, it wouldn't have worked out necessarily timeline wise, but his skill set is really valuable. The rebounding is frustrating and things like that, and I don't think we've entirely used him as well defensively as he can be used. But, I mean, nothing surprises me. Nothing would surprise me from this front office. I just really don't want to hear any, I mean, the injury excuses are built in, but we shouldn't learn the wrong lessons from this. And I feel like a lot of times, I mean, I live in Los Angeles, so I've been an actor for 25 years, right? And so, like, being in this town, like, you see things all the time where movie studios and things like that, they learn the wrong lessons from something. Sometimes a movie hits because of what's going on at the culture at that time, or sometimes, like, you take, I mean, not to get too deep in the weeds, but like you take a movie like Captain Marvel, right? So Captain Marvel, they put in between these two gigantic Avenger movies, and there's connective tissue in this Captain Marvel movie. So we all, like, everybody goes to that movie, and then the lesson that they learn from that is, oh, everybody loves Captain Marvel, we should do a Captain Marvel sequel. And then the Captain Marvel sequel comes out, it's not sandwiched between two Avengers movies, and it's the lowest grossing Marvel movie that they ever made. So in that vein, I hope we don't learn the wrong lessons from just a little bit of success here or there, and jeopardize the long-term success of what we can do by making sure we maximize these assets that we have. Now, Jeremy signed to a long-term contract. Could you hang on to him and, roll the dice and go into the summer or even go into next season? And, maybe there are different teams that are in contention next year that have stuff that we value more than the stuff that's out there now. I'm always on the side of trading a guy a tad early as opposed to trading a guy a tad late, but that's just me.
Yeah, I don't think the teams that are interested in him, like, let's just say the Pacers, the Pistons, the Lakers.
The Pistons. It's insane.
I don't think any of them view his contract as a negative contract. So I think they look at him as a really good fit for their roster. So I'm going to be mad if I find out that Cronin was, like, refusing to take calls on Jeremy, at least, like, exploring the market for him, if that's what you want. And
I'm always ticked at a GM that does not know the value around the league for his guys.
Yeah. Well,
outside of not taking calls for Dame back when, like, the Blazers were fully entrenched with Dame, like in the Neal years and stuff like that. But to not know what was out there for CJ when Neal was just defiantly like, we're not trading Dame and CJ, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I think a good GM should take all calls, quite frankly, and just listen, and you can respectfully say no or even laugh and say no. But I think you should take all calls. I just find it stupid if you don't.
Yeah, I agree. And I just want to say this. I've said it many times, but I just want to be clear. I will always be grateful to Jeremy for being one of the only good players that forced his way to Portland, wanted to play here with Dame. I mean, it took a year for him to make that decision, but he made it. Came to Portland, re-signed with Portland, all that kind of stuff. Now we gave him the bag or whatever. But there isn't a lot of players that would have been willing to at least come and try it with Dame. And it's not necessarily his fault that they didn't then go for it with another player. Jeremy and Dave could have convinced people to want to come here moving forward, I believe. And so I will always respect Jeremy for being the one guy who actually came and tried to help Dame here in Portland. So this has nothing to do with him as a person or anything. He's obviously a great person, great teammate, all that kind of stuff. None of that stuff can ever be taken away from him. But I think you have to move him, man. I just think you have to take advantage of his value in a year where there are so many teams. The West is just like a convoluted mess right now. Like, who know? Like, you have Minnesota and Oklahoma City at the top of the conference. Like, does anyone, like, if you're like the Clippers or the Lakers or the Kings or the Pelicans, or like, do any of these teams?
Are you terrified?
Are they sitting here thinking, if we make a big move right now, can we really not compete with Minnesota and Oklahoma City? Like, they've proven nothing so far, right? And who knows? Maybe OKC is the next Golden State. They run off like 4 championships and go to like 5 straight or whatever. But I mean, that could be the case. But you have to look at this as, don't you want to make them show it? Yeah. This has to be a situation where there are going to be multiple teams who think we could do this year. And then there's a group of teams that aren't necessarily contenders, but are looking to do something dumb and think short-term versus long-term with their rosters and go for the playoffs this year because they've had a couple years where they haven't made the playoffs, like Houston and Indiana. And if they want to trade young players like Cam Whitmore and Tari Eason and Jarris Walker and stuff for Jeremy Grant and Malcolm Brogdon, you have to do that if you're Portland. You just have to. You are not in a position to where you can say like, oh, we need to keep Jeremy because he provides some good minutes and scores 20 points a game. Even if those trades don't work out and those young players you get are never as good as Jeremy, the risk right now is the most important part. You go for risks with young players and picks in the situation Portland is, and you always have those assets then to make a trade and get a Jeremy Grant down the line if you need a Jeremy Grant type player. So I think that Portland would be foolish to not take advantage of that. Even if it doesn't work out, I think it's the right move.
Oh, Eric, I mean, if only we had won a few more games this season, we could be one of those dumb teams getting ready to make a tough move.
I think we would have been too if we were sitting here like
11,
15 and 20 right now. I think we'd be thinking we could get up there, right?
Yeah. I mean, luckily, I think we're outside of that. But yeah, I mean, kind of echoing what you said about Jeremy. And again, I've said it many times. I loved his dad, Harvey, so much when he came to the Blazers. I just thought Harvey put up these crazy stats for the Washington Bullets, and I just thought he was going to come here to Portland and do the exact same thing. And that's really when you kind of learn about, empty stats on a bad team guy, like from a statistical standpoint for Harvey Grant. But I still loved Harvey Grant. Loved Harvey Grant as a person. Loved Jeremy as a person. So this is in no way, shape, or form, a silent Jeremy situation where we're like, get out. Like, it's definitely not that. It's, quite frankly, honoring the value that he has. And yes, he's got this huge contract, but some of the things that, you've been hearing lately are about how just as the years go on, that contract actually becomes like a good contract, which is crazy. So yeah, it's nothing against Jeremy in any way, shape, or form. if this team were in a different position, he's a great piece to have on your team, but he just doesn't fit where we're at. So, I hope we maximize him. But
His contract is definitely interesting because I do every time there's some sort of discussion on social media about his contract, um, it's very split. Like you have him locked up for 5 years. This is both Blazer fans and fans of other teams that want him. Like, oh, it's great to trade for someone you know will be on your team for 4.5 years, and you know what he provides. And then at the same time, I see multiple people saying you're not going to get anything for him because his contract is terrible and it's long and whatever. I think more GMs are thinking now, like you just mentioned, where as the salary cap goes up, those deals might be bad at the time they're signed, but even in 1 year removed from signing it, it doesn't look as bad. And now there's players that aren't worth that money. DeAndre Ayton. Sorry. But when you look at Grant, I mean, I could definitely see teams convincing themselves that he's not a negative contract and he's worth that money.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some that think he's a little overpaid as well. And he might be a little overpaid. But I don't think it's like a contract that we're going to be sitting here if Cronin trades him for a couple second round picks and an expiring contract, and you have that section of Blazer fans and Blazer media telling you that that was the best he could do because it was a negative value contract,
What
out
is
of
it supposed to do?
get out of here with that BS. If I hear that anyone trying to say that if Cronin gets ripped off for trading him, and I am not saying to trade Jeremy under any circumstance, right? Like you don't want to just trade him for the sake of trading him, but right. I believe his value is so high that it's not possible to not get at least some sort of piece that's worth getting back in our situation right now. So yeah, I don't know.
Let's pivot for a second. Let me ask you kind of a flip side question. What kind of a hit are you willing to take to move off Ayton? Because that might be more of a situation. So Jeremy, as you were saying, is not a addition by subtraction situation. We just needed to get rid of Jeremy. We're not in that situation with Jeremy. However, I might kind of argue that Ayton might be that kind of situation, kind of. So what kind of hit from a trading standpoint would you look at and go, okay, it's not great. It's a shame it didn't work out here, and we had to kind of eat it on this trade, but this type of trade is acceptable. And obviously if you get somebody to give you something really valuable, you take it. But realistically speaking, what could you look at and be like, okay, they made chicken salad out of that?
If they traded him for an expiring contract straight up, I don't know if it's good. I don't know if that's
wow,
exciting. I've brought up this example several times on the show, but Gordon Hayward is an expiring $30 million contract. If Charlotte calls and offers him straight up, I would hope we'd get a couple second round picks or something too, and some sort of young player.
If you did it soon enough, couldn't you just turn around and maybe flip Gordon again?
Yeah, you could. I don't know what his market would be, but I'm sure someone would want to possibly take him on. And so it doesn't have to be Gordon Hayward. It could be any player that makes $30 million that's an expiring or whatever. So I would for sure be okay with that. I'm not exciting. I'm not doing jumping jacks. I'm not mad about it either. But I will say, if they do something like that, they have to have a plan moving forward to get a center, whether that's they're going to give up some of the assets they have to move up to get Alex Sarr if we don't get the first pick or whatever, or if he doesn't go first and we need to use a couple of our future firsts to move up from 7 or whatever to 2. Whether it's that, or if you're doing that, if you're getting rid of Ayton to have cap space this summer and you use that cap space then to go after a guy we saw tonight, Nick Claxton, who's an unrestricted free agent, and you could offer a big contract too. So you have to have some sort of plan for what you're going to do. I don't want to just hear we did it for flexibility and then do nothing with that flexibility, right? So there has to be a second step to that, whether it's through the draft, maybe there's someone that's projected as a late first or a second round pick. Like I like Deron Holmes from Dayton. Like if they thought they could get him with one of their early second round picks and be fine moving forward at center with Reith and whoever they get this summer, that's fine too. But we need to have a plan. It can't just be, oh, we're just going to dump him for the sake of getting rid of his contract and then not follow it up with a long-term plan for the center position.
Well, and the problem with freeing up cap space is if you don't have a plan, these guys, I mean, look, we're already a tough free agent destination, so we almost have to have like a clear picture of organizational stability and how we're going to be able to compete and how this player fits perfectly into this. We've got a coaching staff that knows exactly how to plug that player into the system. Like, so many things are quite frankly, right. So many things are not, like, we are not lined up like that right now, but the ever, the specter of cap space and what it's going to do for us. Now, you can do things with cap space, like trade players into your cap space, and that's another conversation. But, the idea of, oh, well, Nick Claxton is a free agent, and all we got to do is we got to make these moves and free up this room, and then we'll bring in Claxton, and that's great. And that'd be great. But I think a lot more intangibles go into that, just as opposed to, does Portland have enough cap space to bring in Nick Claxton? And clearly there are more issues at play than that.
Yeah. Taylor Packer jokes it could be the plan could be the incredible, reliable Robert Williams. Yeah, I kind of forget that he's on the roster right now and could be part of the equation next year. But much like we talked about with Nurk for years, you need 3 centers if you're going to have Robert Williams on your roster as one of the centers. So you need at least 2 other ones that are consistently there and not hurt very often. And so, like, now we've had a case where we were going into this year with a really good center combination of Ayton and Williams, and now we haven't had either of them for a while. And Robert we've barely had. So, there's players in the draft. If you want to keep going with the young route, there's free agents that are still young, or there's trade options. Like, you could probably get a Daniel Gafford from Washington still for some for like a late first or second round picks or something. So there's options, man. Like, every draft has had recently has had a center go in like the teens or 20s that ends up being a decent center and a starting level center in this league. So there's ways to find them. I just hope they don't go a whole off season without acquiring at least one of those kind of guys.
Yeah, I agree. Can we touch on just maybe just a little bit more about the game today?
Yeah. Well, before we move on, let me just say one more thing. If it's like for Ben Simmons, Ayton for Ben Simmons,
expiring. Okay.
No, well, Ben Simmons isn't expiring. He still has one more year. So
that's right.
You basically be cutting 1 year off the end of it. I would probably not do those kind of trades unless we were getting a good young player back in that trade. Like or a first round pick or something, then I would consider that if we got an asset with it. If there's no assets, it better be flat out expiring.
You don't really want Ben Simmons at the back of the plane in the poker game going, guys, you don't really have to play if you don't want to. I don't know if you know, but
you can sit out and get paid.
You can totally doesn't playing kind of make you sad a little bit? No, the NBA's kind of done some things in their contracts now that kind of tried to amend for that. I want to talk about Shaedon a little bit. What did you make of Shaedon's game today?
I thought this was by far Shaedon's best game since he got back from the adductor issue. I felt like he did have some moments where he just kind of floated out there and wasn't aggressive, but when he was aggressive today, he was really good. If Malcolm throws a better pass in that lob, he probably has an incredible game-winning play there. That was great athleticism just to catch that ball and have a chance to get
such a beautiful
because that pass was so far out there, man.
I think I told you during the game, I think for his first 2 seasons, Shaedon leads the league in almost amazing plays. Like he almost dunked on this guy. He almost finished this layup. Like, just hopefully as he continues to get older and develop his body a little bit more, like these things are going to be finished. But yeah, I agree with you. And look, he made the shot that put him up 2 that almost won this game in regulation for him. So it was great. It was great to see him play so much better. Still, I think you told me on the phone earlier that the minutes restriction was off. So, I mean, still didn't start. I'm not crazy about that, but he got a good amount of minutes today, so that's okay. He's the guy that I worry the most about in terms of sometimes I feel like Shaedon is just cool with whatever. So like if you give him this role, he'll do it. If you give him this role, he'll do it. And I feel like the more we can put on Shaedon, and I don't mean it from a pressure standpoint, but from a responsibility standpoint.
Like last year.
I think he's just going to thrive. And so I want to make sure that we keep the pedal to the metal for him. And again, not in a pressuring him situation, but just in a push him. Like, how great can he be? Like, I saw somebody in your chat the other night talking about, well, Anthony Edwards is averaging this for the Timberwolves, et cetera, et cetera. They're first in the West, so on and so forth. Could Sharpe ultimately be this? And, the stats for Edwards are great, but from a talent standpoint, from the tools that he has to work with, and the things that we've already seen him improve on, I think he definitely has that kind of talent. I think he's a quiet guy. I also think being 20 has a lot to do with that, So, he'll be a different. I mean, you know this. Like, we were different people at 25 and 26 than we were at 20, right? Mm-hmm. Although, I mean, there is a strong theory that men we never mature, and women do all the maturing. But so I just want to continue. I worry about the not starting Shaedon stuff, putting him in a more passive mindset or role with the team. So that bugs me a little bit. But having said that, I thought he was really good today.
Yeah. The only thing that still slightly annoys me with Sharpe is he still is doing that thing where he'll play defense on someone and he'll play really good defense, and then they go to shoot and he puts his hands down on his side and doesn't contest the shot and doesn't finish the defensive possession. And it's so annoying to me. Like, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, are you just trying not to foul, or like what? Like
you were so close,
right? Like, and he does it like so often. It's infuriating to me. I don't understand how that hasn't been corrected out of him yet. Like, I don't know.
Do you remember the early season late game block against Memphis?
Yeah.
To send the game into overtime, the saving block. Oh, I lost my mind on that.
Right.
I was like, God, I don't want to,
But
because athletically he could do that stuff.
those are the kind of plays though that like, because he's had a couple of nice chase down blocks or ones where he comes from the weak side, and those are the ones where he doesn't have to think. He just goes and gets the ball, right? And
Right.
if he doesn't,
Yeah.
I mean, is someone going to be mad that he didn't block a 3-point shot from where he took off from? You know?
Well, and it's also like a panic desperation.
Yeah. There's 1 second left. You have to try and get the ball.
Right.
So those kind of things are
But
what I'm talking about.
those earlier possessions matter too. Like
Yeah.
it all stakes out. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe like he was fouling too much when he was first playing defense all the way through, and then so he just learned to start, because there was a time last year where he was Baji's going through this right now, Scoot's going through this, where they just they come in the game and they just get, it doesn't matter what the game flow is or what's happening, they're gonna get 2 fouls in the first half and have to come out of the game, right? They're just
Scoot had a horrible one. Like Reith had cleared, the rebound had kind of cleared out.
Yeah.
And the Nets clearly just had the rebound, and for no reason, Scoot just ran up and banged into the guy.
Yep.
And got a quick foul. And I was like, why? Like, you had no shot at that rebound. You had no, like, the referee's right there. Like, you're totally going to get nailed for it. Just, like, fouls like that just confound me. I was just like, what are you doing?
So I think early on, because there was a time last year when Sharpe would have that happen too. He would get a couple of quick fouls.
Yeah.
And he started moving his feet really quick, but he would put his hands behind his back on a couple of possessions, like on the perimeter. It wasn't like inside. And so like maybe that just like rubbed on him the wrong way or something, like he's just trying not to foul, but I don't know.
It's like the Chris Paul when Scott Foster is calling a game, like I'm not gonna foul.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. Yeah, it's just kind of funny. By the way, Chris Paul out for 4 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah.
So just little nice for our hopeful little lottery pick there.
Yeah. But Draymond's coming back.
Oh yeah, great. So I haven't, we haven't seen any super chats come in or anything like that, and it's been hard for me to kind of follow the chat. What does chat think about today's game, or what does chat want to talk about? Because I mean, I feel like did you feel like Chauncey had a good game today? I mean, we talked about him winning the two challenges. What did you think about his coaching today?
So yeah, we do have to talk about this. So I thought for the most part, Chauncey did a pretty good job in this game. I thought the two challengers were great. I thought he probably should have challenged one when Tamani got his 4th foul earlier in the game. I mean, I guess it worked out that he didn't, but maybe we don't have that close of a game at the end if he did challenge the other one. But he challenged, like, Malcolm. He trusted Malcolm, and Malcolm proved. There's always those. I've heard stories about coaches say this. They'll give players one chance when they react the way Malcolm did tonight, and if they're wrong, they'll never trust them again. Like, I don't want to hear it. Don't ever tell me that you didn't foul him again. So I guess Malcolm earned his trust today with that. Like, why did the ref call the foul on that anyway? And we lost the jump ball, so it didn't really matter. But thankfully, we won the challenge, so we had a second one. And then, like I wasn't even paying attention to the. I thought he clearly saved it off of Ant, that second challenge. And so for the coaching staff to notice that he came down before he threw it was a great catch by them. So kudos to them. I thought he was pretty good for the most part down the stretch. There were a couple of possessions where we knew Anfernee was going to be doubled, and Lamar even brought this up on the broadcast, that no one was flashing to the middle. You have to have someone flash. They all just stood there on the side where Anfernee didn't have anywhere to go, and the middle was just wide open. And when you have two people doubling right near half court almost, or halfway between the 3-point line and half court, you have to be able to attack that in a 4-on-3 situation. So hopefully we learn from this, unlike we didn't learn for years with Dame and stuff. Hopefully we can learn how to attack that a little better, but that's a moving forward thing. I think this was the first game where we saw just flat out double teams on every possession for Anfernee. We've seen him get doubled often this year, but not quite to the extent he was for almost the whole game today. And then the other thing is comes down to, so obviously he had coached them well, because normally I think Jeremy shoots that shot in the corner with like 12 seconds left.
Totally.
So great job of, it was clear that he told the team, do not shoot till the end, right? And Sharpe gets the ball back with like 11 seconds left, is wide open from 3 and doesn't shoot it. Like, good decision, right? And then he drives, it's a little too early, but he finishes and puts us up 2, okay? Yeah. So it sucks that we left 5.5 seconds on the clock. That's not necessarily Chauncey's fault. You could tell he had coached them not to shoot till the end, and Sharpe just happened to go a little early. But when you do that,
you could kind of feel that Sharpe was going earlier than he even really wanted to, but probably thought, we're going to get no better look than this, so I might as well just do it. Yeah,
but you don't want to give them a chance to either tie or win at the end. You want it to either go to overtime or you win. So I would not have drove there, but I don't think that was Chauncey's fault. I think Sharpe just got a little anxious and went early, which is fine, because he was trying not to, but he did. And then if you do that, you got to finish, and he did a great finish over the big in a really tough situation, but he elevated and went around and finished. So great to him. But there's a timeout by Brooklyn. There's 5.5 seconds left. We've seen this now multiple times. Okay, and once again, you can blame the players. Sure, blame the players. Okay, but at some point, this has to be a situation where it can't be every single time there's a different player forgetting what they're supposed to do in the last seconds, right? Because we had a foul to give. There's 5.5 seconds left. Mikal is driving. You have to take the foul there and make them then inbound the ball again with 2 seconds left or 3 seconds left, and have to go do it again and make a tough shot. So I don't know if Kamara, most likely just he didn't think he could foul there, or maybe he thought Mikal was going to shoot and he didn't want to give him an and one, or send him to the line or whatever. But you have to foul there in that situation and use that foul to give, even if you do it right away and just waste like 1 second or a half a second off the clock. It still makes it a little more difficult. So,
well, you also get a look at what they're in. If you just foul the moment that they inbound, you at least get a look at the set.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we're once again left questioning, did a player just not do what Chauncey told them in the timeout? You could tell Chauncey was mad at Kamara for not fouling, so I'm pretty sure he told them to foul.
Yeah.
But what is it that is not coming across in these late game situations, whether it's not calling a timeout or whatever the situation is, not giving the ball to the right person? We've seen far too many times under Chauncey where there's a lack of something being executed in crunch time, and it's got to be an issue with clarity. like you just have to go to people and say, as soon as Mikal puts the ball on the ground, you foul him. I don't care what he's doing. You foul him. Do not let him get to his shot. Okay. And that has to be all Tumani's thinking about in that situation is, okay, as soon as he dribbles once, I'm fouling him before he can get into a shot. And that's got to be his only thing. And this reminds me of I just saw an interview with Jeremy Lin, and he was on the Rockets for Dame's .9 shot, right?
Right.
And he was talking about how he had defended Dame the whole fourth quarter and had done a pretty good job on Dame. Dame hadn't really scored in the fourth leading up to that. And
neither had the rest of the team.
Right. I mean, we were not good in that quarter, but
no outside shots.
So he said in that timeout, there was confusion. So McHale said, I forgot if it was McHale said not to switch, and then Harden said to switch no matter what. And then they went out of the timeout, and they were confused. Like, some of them were saying to switch, and some of them were saying not to switch. And then you could still see, so they played the clip, and you could still see Harden and Chandler Parsons talking about whether they were going to switch or not, and they don't. And Parsons has to come all the way around the screen, doesn't get there in time, and we know what happens. So, like, I don't know if it's something like that where it's not being communicated clearly, because that's bad coaching by McHale to not have your players understand exactly what they're supposed to do or override them or say, okay, that's a good idea. Let's go with that. Let's switch all picks or whatever. With .9, why are you not switching all picks anyway? Like, that's completely stupid, as we know from the Korkmaz 3-point shot against us a few years ago.
Man.
So I don't know if it's just confusion or if it really is just you got players like Ayton and Kamara who maybe just forget or don't execute it right. That's totally possible, and it might be blaming Chauncey for something that's not his fault. But at some point, you have to question why players keep forgetting in these situations to do what they want to do or what the coaching staff wants of them.
Now, how much grace would you give to people who are going to push back and say, well, they're young players, we got to give them, we've got to understand that Kamara's a rookie, etc. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, it's like, we are dealing with guys who basketball has been their life, for all of these years, even if you're just a rookie. Now, obviously, stepping up to the pros is all the difference in the world, but yeah, I mean, I'm like the porridge of Goldilocks ate in the middle of that in terms of, I hate to see those mistakes. Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle on it. I totally see your point, and I would totally see the point from somebody who wants to say, well, these guys are young, et cetera, et cetera. But, I mean, he's got to be telling them, right? I mean, obviously with Billups getting upset at Kamara today, you've got to believe that that's what was happening in the huddle, that he's telling these guys.
Yeah.
I also would be curious as to, like back in the heyday of our fandom, the Rick Adelman days and stuff, you would see the assistant coaches, like everybody has different roles and things like that. And you would see the assistant coaches go up to guys and say, we have a foul to give. So I'd be curious what the communication is throughout the roster. And not the roster, but the coaching staff. Because I think we're both in the same boat that the staff, if Chauncey stays, the staff getting an overhaul would be nice to see. So I'd be curious as to what everybody, we talked about whoever was looking at the video and saw the out of bounds play, that was a great catch, that kind of thing. But also just in terms of the little things, the shoring up the little things, like who has what responsibilities to tell guys that? Because obviously, if it falls on Chauncey's head at the end of the day, but and maybe it is Chauncey. Maybe Chauncey's in there saying, we've got a foul to give. You want to make sure you take it, especially if McHale touches it. You give the foul. Make sure that he's put the ball on the floor. He doesn't have an opportunity to rip through and rise up, so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, I'd be curious, and I mean, we'll never find out, but I'd be curious as to what roles what assistant coaches have and who is actually responsible for sending out those little. I mean, they don't become little if you end up losing games for them, but just shoring up the little things. Like, I'd be curious about that kind of stuff.
So for me, I would completely agree with anyone who says that's on Kamara. He's a young player. He messed it up, and he's a young guy. Like it's gonna happen. Okay, that's fine. If you want to feel that way, fine. Yeah, especially if you're just looking at this one game. Totally agree. But outside, Rich, of Risk City, that stretch last year where we hit the game winners,
you said Risk City.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay, yeah.
So outside of that, it's late game things like that have come up numerous times in the last 3 seasons under Chauncey, and so at some point, Tori's been on this for a long time. I am more of the opinion that I wanted to see more examples or whatever. But here we are, another example of a player in the clutch not doing something that was supposed to be done. So at some point, I have to stop blaming the players and start blaming the messaging on what's happening and saying, why aren't these players executing time and time again in these situations? And it's always something. So I'm not saying it's coaching. I'm not saying it's Chauncey's fault. But at some point, it's got to go back on Chauncey for why they're not executing. And it's just because it's been multiple different things, including several this season. And maybe it's just as simple as we haven't played enough close games to have situational awareness in those things. You tell Kamara you have a foul to give, like maybe it's been a long time since he's had to use a foul to give in this situation, up 1 or up 2 in that situation. And he hasn't practiced it enough or whatever, and they haven't had much practice time, remember, Rich. So,
and Mikhail's having like a 40-point night, and I could understand the ball being inbounded to him, and then you've got Kamara, he gets caught up for a second watching, and then all of a sudden he's like, oh shoot, if I take the foul, he might, try and get me on an and one. I mean, I can see how it happens. I got to tell you, it's crazy. I did not get like super. I did not get super analytical about coaching until 2018.
The Pelican
and I mean,
series.
look, the Pelican series, and that's really when I got to a point of, okay, there's your regular season coaching, and then there's your playoff coaching, and back to the return to Rip City days when Drexler and Porter and the guys, we would have our issues, especially with our cold outside shooting nights sometimes in the playoffs, where we would just have like a stinker of a game and be shooting in the 30s at halftime and things like that. And, we would lose series that we probably should have won. But for the Dame years, I was really cool until we got to like 2018. And then it started to become annoying. And then watching in 2019, which all went fine until we got to the Western Conference Finals. And then you're watching what happens in 2020 and 2021. And Stotts was so stubborn. And Stotts had so much success. He had so much regular season success that he was able to fall back on, people making excuses for him. But he was just so stubborn. And also, when you've got vets on the team that are now established in the league. Now we're talking about Dame at 27, Dame at 28, 29, CJ the same. Those guys they know what they want to run, and you can kind of sit back a little bit and let them kind of run the regular season and things like that. But when you get in the playoffs, you have a lot more trouble. Obviously it's fair to look at the coaching. It's important to look at the coaching. I think a lot of times with coaching, a lot of your coaching in the game that you're watching has already taken place, or I should better say, should have already taken place. Mm-hmm. Like in terms of the habits that you build. the culture that you build that lead to focusing on how important the little things are. You know what I mean? Like when have you watched, let's just pick a name, but when have you watched an Eric Spoelstra coach team just make dumb plays down the stretch and so on and so forth? Like it's just it comes from the top down in terms of attention to detail and things like that. And I've only guessed it on here, like I think 2 or 3 times. So it's not like I come on here and harp about it, but obviously you guys talk about the coaching a lot and I think it deserves it. But at the same time, for me personally, I just get so frustrated that I even have to critique the coaching or look at the coaching. It's one thing to look at the team and get caught up in the results, like they didn't win or they look so bad losing, et cetera, et cetera. But it's the NBA, and when you're rebuilding like we are, being at a talent disadvantage, those nights are going to happen. You're going to get the doors blown off you, especially by experienced teams who know what they're doing, so on and so forth. But like I would love to be in a place where you could kind of just take the coaching for granted a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're not there, but I feel bad for nitpicking, because sometimes I feel like, I'll just speak for myself. Sometimes I feel like I'm really nitpicking Chauncey when really, okay, Kamara didn't take the foul to give. And I feel like, oh, you guys just criticize everything Chauncey does. And it's not exactly that, but it's just a little like, but it's just this mountain of evidence that adds up over time that just comes to, man, these things, even though they're little things, but they compound over the course of a game, over the course of a season, over the course of 3 seasons, that just really make you frustrated. It's like, I'll say this and then I'll shut up. It used to infuriate me when the Blazers under Stotts would have a completely different game plan for somebody like James Harden. And we used to have really good games against the Rockets and Harden. Yeah. And there'd be some games where we would almost shut him down to an extent. I mean, he's always going to get some points, but we would really confound him with some of the defensive, sets that we were playing. We weren't playing drop scheme and things like that. And that always made me feel like, see, we can do it. Yeah. The coaching staff can do it. They just stubbornly decide not to do it. But just on a Thursday night TNT game, they're going to break out, some different defense for Harden. And I wish they would do that more. So, yeah, I just concentrating on coaching and having to be frustrated about coaching. I don't like it. I'm not trying to hate on Chauncey or hate on the organization or anything like that. But you also have to call out what you see when you see it.
Yeah, I was at opening night in, it would have been, 2019? The 2019-2020 season, so the season after the Western Conference Finals run. Okay, we were playing.
Did they open with the Kings that year?
We opened with the Nuggets. That was one of the
Nuggets.
Yeah, okay. That was one of the years we didn't open with the Kings.
The Kings were always a good guess,
yeah,
right?
Yep. So we had Zach starting at the 4, and we had Whiteside as our starting 5. And in that game, I saw Hassan Whiteside at least 6 or 7 times hedge a screen and recover perfectly back to Jokic or whoever he was guarding and stop like really good Blazer team defense on pick and rolls. And it looked really nice. And I'm like, wow, is this going to be what this season is like? We're not going to just play drop coverage. We're actually going to hedge it. And I really feel like that was just Whiteside, like, because he's used to doing that, right, from other teams.
That's
because
Whiteside going rogue.
After that game, I barely saw it the rest of the season, right? It was like one game, and it got coached out of him. And then all season, I had to hear, we can't do anything other than drop with Whiteside because he's just completely incapable of understanding what he's supposed to do or, like, getting back to his guy or whatever. And I just kept thinking, I I literally watched him do it multiple times on the best center in the game, like recover fine, and it was not a problem, and our defense looked really nice. So like I didn't understand that, and so I always think back to things like that. It's like, I don't know, coaches sometimes get just so stubborn in their ways and stuff. And I'm not saying that's the case necessarily with Chauncey, but yeah, it's just it's hard when you have people excusing coaching all the time for whatever reason, and they don't ever like analyze it in a way where it's like looking at the details. Like, for example, this season and last season and the season before that and the season before that, there's a lot of there was a lot of times where I'm wondering if our defense would be better off if we just let Anfernee and Scoot play on the ball and not have to be our help defenders or are getting switched on the bigs. So
yeah,
I know Tamani's done a good job like guarding guards and playing up front, but I still feel like having Scoot and Anfernee off the ball is leading to a lot of our breakdowns in defense. So I would love to see a situation where we take our guards and put them on the other team's guards and let our bigger defenders like Tamani, we've seen him now in several games, be really good off-ball deflecting passes and things like that. And so, like, it's almost like just put Anfernee on the ball, just put Scoot on the ball and let them either suffer or whatever. But if they're getting into the defense with our best defenders on them anyway and creating mismatches through screens and having our guys off ball having to guard centers and things like that, why not just set it up so at least if they beat our guards, we have our three best defenders then as the help defenders, instead of the opposite where we have our best defenders then trailing the play and out of the play, and then have our worst rim protectors, our smallest guys, trying to stop a center from going down the lane. So I always wonder that. It's like, well, why don't you at least, if your defense is horrible, why don't you at least try something different instead of every game just continually putting your guards in the worst possible positions? And then, yeah, but it's just stuff like that. And you may think like, well, it's a stupid idea, and that's totally fine. But like, I just, when your defense is like last in the league for a couple of years or near the bottom of the league, and you're not doing anything to change your defensive schemes, it completely baffles me.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, like, you know, in the early 90s, again, like the time where like my basketball fandom was just going like supernova. Mm-hmm. Back in those days, man, it was like, if you're a point guard, you're guarding the other team's point guard, and that's it. You're like, for 48 minutes. And same thing with shooting guard. Now you might get a little interchange with, you know, your small forward and your shooting guard, or, you know, like Drexler might move over to Magic Johnson as opposed to Terry Porter guarding Magic Johnson, because Magic was 6'9", Clyde is 6'7", Terry is 6'3", you know, but for the most part, like, it was very much a, you know, if you can't defend your counterpart across the court from you, you're going to get embarrassed. And I think there's kind of some merit to that. I mean, we've all been playing pickup basketball, you know, and maybe been, well, maybe not you, Eric, but been in a situation where your guy is starting to score like some of the, you know, big buckets down the stretch, and you start to feel that pressure. Man, I don't want my guy to be the guy that kills us. You also shouldn't be the guy that's like, well, my guy didn't score. You know, so you don't want to be that guy.
My guy.
Right, exactly. So you don't want to be that either. But yeah, yeah, like I was just saying before, man, to have to pay so much attention to the coaching, maybe to the level that it makes us a little manic about it every time there's any little mistake on the court, you know, it's kind of a shame. But again, I think a lot of the coaching issues that we see currently with this team, let's just limit it to this season, really have to do with what's being ingrained in them in practice sessions, in tape sessions, that type of thing. And that's where some of the breakdowns are happening. And obviously, I mean, there's going to be in-game stuff that happens and things like that. But I think when it comes down to team identity stuff, your toughness, your resilience, things like that, I don't think those things come out, on the little erase board or the tablet or whatever they're using these days. Those things come out, through your practice time, your bonding, your tape sessions, things like that. So that's what I want to see improve.
Yeah. Well, I did a poll while we were talking, late game execution errors on Chauncey.
Okay.
On the players, or I don't want to pick a side. I wanted to have a neutral answer to see how many people wanted to stay on the fence and didn't want to pick. We got 52 votes. 44% says it's on Chauncey. Only 19% say it's on the players. And a whopping 36% did not want to participate and choose a side. So,
see? That's a lot of what I was saying. They're like, oh, why do we have to think about this?
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
So you did bring this up a little bit earlier, and I do think we need to spend a few minutes on it here.
Yeah.
Do you think Shaedon Sharpe should be starting in right now, or are you fine with him coming off the bench?
I think he should be starting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, because I think Scoot, I think we've got Scoot to a place now that we're not in panic mode anymore. Not that, and maybe if we were in panic mode, it was for like a very short period of time, but there was definitely a time. And as I've said many times, concern is not slander. Right. So, like people get like, oh, why are you hating on Scoot, et cetera, et cetera. But, I thought he was going to be much more NBA ready than he is to this point. And again, he's a kid. So no slander whatsoever. I think because of the things that I mentioned earlier with Shaedon, I think it's much more important to start Shaedon, make sure Shaedon has as much responsibility as we can put on him, because I feel like whether the team realizes it, whether Shaedon realizes it, or anything like that, I just feel the more responsibility you can dump on Shaedon, I feel like he can handle it. And I feel like he's going to come through. And I feel like not starting. And look, I mean, they're professionals. People are going to say, well, it shouldn't matter if they're getting the same amount of minutes, so on and so forth. It doesn't matter. But I think to a guy like Shaedon, like you can't be. This is not college. We shouldn't be the team that's like, this is the offense that we run here. You come here, this is not Princeton University. Yeah. Shout out to Princeton, West Virginia is where I grew up.
I would love to run the Princeton offense.
Right? But you can't do the, here at the Portland Trailblazers, we run 1 and then 4 out, and that's how we play, and so on and so forth. So you have to tailor your team and your scheme and all the other words that I could rhyme around the players that you have and their personalities, their individual personalities. I think for Shaedon, it's important that he starts from a leadership responsibility, giving him more leadership. And I feel like Scoot, because Scoot is more of a forceful personality. I know we haven't seen it a ton this year with flourishes, to the basket and powerful dunks and things that we saw in the G League. I feel like those things will come as he, gets more reps in the league and things like that. But I'm not worried about Scoot's confidence or his, dare I say, alpha status or anything like that. But I think for a guy like Shaedon, I think starting is important. So it took me a long time to give you an answer, but I wanted to give you the proper context. I do think we should be starting him.
So you don't think he should be starting at the 3? You think he should be starting at the 2 over Scoot?
Yeah, I do. I think he should be starting at the 2.
Because let me just run something by you.
Okay.
Every one of Sharpe's 40 minutes today, he played at the small forward position.
Okay, well, clearly I'm a jackass.
Well,
And
no, 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 no. I'm not. This wasn't like meant to be a knock on you. I'm just
you
saying.
gave me a gotcha.
I'm saying, like for those that don't think he's a small forward or can't play small forward, he played small forward the entire 40 minutes. Is what I'm saying. Like, so what's the difference between him starting at small forward and playing 40 minutes off the bench at small forward? Like, why not just start all three of them and see what you have, right? Like, see if you can start developing a chemistry between the three of them.
Well, part of my answer, and this is not me backtracking or trying to take it back. Part of my answer.
Your answer is fine, by the way. Like, there's no right or wrong answer.
Oh no, I agree. It was an excellent answer. But no, you didn't say that. No, I thought the question was framed. It either has to be Scoot or Shaedon.
Oh no.
Like,
okay. Yeah, I'm saying, would you?
I'm for rolling the three guys out there, but I don't think they're going to do it.
Right. Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah,
but I'm all for it, and especially in a game like today, where Bridges is out there and things like that. I mean, yeah, I think Shaedon can play well at the three. And look, guys that play at the two typically slide over to the three anyway. I'm totally fine with it. Again, I just thought we were talking about the merits of Sharpe starting over Scoot or vice versa.
No, I'm just talking about him starting in general. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's probably Tamani, but it's also why I wouldn't mind trading Grant, is because then you just start Sharpe at the three and Tamani at the four, and you see what you have there. And like I said, you want to start forcing them to develop some chemistry out there. I know it's still kind of clunky with Scoot and Anfernee, which one's supposed to be bringing the ball up, and Anfernee goes, he comes back in the game in the second quarter with like 7.5 minutes left and doesn't take a shot until like 3 minutes left. I'm not blaming Scoot for that, but and then there was a point in the second half where he doesn't take a shot for 3 minutes into the second half. So I'm just wondering if it's best to have Scoot come off the bench, or if it's best to just throw the three of them out there and let them figure it out. And the more tape you get, the more reps you get of, as Mason Warner says in chat, it was pissing him off how Sharpe barely touched the ball in the fourth, and he was just standing in the corner for the most part. Do you use that as like teaching experiences? So like if there's a couple games of them, those three playing together, and then Scoot and Sharpe are not doing what they're supposed to be doing off ball, you'd be like, next game you need to do this in that situation, and then see if they can handle that kind of stuff. Like you say, give them more responsibility and tell them what their responsibilities are in those situations, instead of just letting them like be on the court without doing anything. And so yeah, I feel like we need to get all three of them accustomed to playing together at some point.
Well, you know what would be good? It wouldn't be great and it wouldn't be ideal, but what would be good for this team and for the development of this team is to have a sample size to be able to say this doesn't work.
Yeah, or maybe it could, or maybe it could.
As opposed to we never did it.
Right.
So we never got to find out,
like going for it with Dave
or not. Yeah. So at the very least, I would like to do it, to have it not work and go, okay, well at least we tried it, with a decent sample size. I definitely don't want to leave it on the table as, well, we never got to see that. So yeah, I would rather see it than not see it.
Yep, I completely agree. And I mean, that answer doesn't have to be this season, but you want as big of a sample size as possible when you'd have to make that decision and have that answer, right? So,
well, especially like as you start improving, at some point winning actually does matter, and you do subjugate feelings for the moment of winning,
right?
And
I
feel. Go ahead.
I was saying we're 10-25 right now. Like this should be the time we do it, not when we are winning. And maybe you could justify not playing them together if it's not doing well on the court. But right now, when we're winning a very low percentage of our games, that's the time to do it.
Yeah, just go for it. Like, see what you got. I definitely that's definitely how I feel.
Yeah.
So what is going on in chat? What have you seen in chat? It's been impossible for me to read, but
the chat actually hasn't been too lively today.
It's probably me. Here, chat. Let me give you a little more. I'm typing nothing.
It's Tori's impression.
If this makes chat feel better.
Eric Olson says, "Good point, Rich." So there you go.
I have no idea what he's talking about, but I totally agree.
Taylor Packer said, "Does anyone else get super nervous every time Scoot shoots?" And JP Savvy says, "Actually, Scoot's shot is something that feels like it's going in every time now. His drives are a different story."
I
kind of agree with that. Yeah.
Scoot will take certain shots, like from 3, where I'm like, oh, that looks really good. Oh, wow, that result was a lot worse than I thought when it left his hand. So a lot of times I'm getting to the point where I'm surprised what he's missing from the outside. But the result of the missing looks way different than I thought it was going to be when it left his hand. So I don't know. But yeah, it's, I have a little bit more confidence every time he shoots, for sure. Hey, it's a kid. Okay. Hello. Are you going to let her speak?
She just wanted to see herself on camera.
Okay. I know the feeling.
Yeah. All Good is in chat now. What's up, man? He says, just tweeted about the Sharpe at small forward minutes wild info.
Yeah, that was a great catch on your part. I didn't even notice that today.
Well, I mean, it's not really a catch. They had 3 guards in there at all times. They actually they played small a couple times because Reith and what's his name, Baji, both got 2 fouls right away in the first half, and so both of them had to come out, and we had a really small lineup with like Chris and Jeremy and some other people. So yeah, like we actually played smaller a lot more than we did, but there was never a time where we didn't have at least 3 of the 4 between Malcolm, Scoot, and Anfernee in the game.
Your dog is very active right now.
Yeah, my kids just got home. My mom dropped them off.
Okay. Hey, I'll I feel like we agree too much today. So I'll pick a bone with you about something from a previous episode. You ready?
Hey, my mom wants to say hi real quick.
Hi,
everyone.
Hi, Miss Brandt. How are you?
Rich says, how are you?
I'm good.
Hi.
She says she's good.
It's so good to see her on here. So having said that, said hi to your mom. Now I have a bone to pick with you.
All right.
From the last stream, I think either the last stream or 2 streams ago, somebody asked you if you were going to cry at the Dame game.
Oh, yeah.
And you said you didn't think you were going to cry.
Yeah.
You liar. You're such a liar.
I mean, I don't know.
You don't even know it.
I said I might.
I'll say it for you. You're going to cry.
All right.
It's going to happen.
Maybe. I don't know. It's just kind of with his struggles this year. I don't know. I don't know if that's it or what. I just.
So what would be the most Blazer thing ever? Just ladies and gentlemen, look up to the scoreboard and just like a big thank you Dame banner, and that's it. No video or anything like that.
Oh, jeez.
Could you imagine if they did something like that? No, I mean they'll probably.
And then they showed Cronin's press conference after they drafted Scoot about how high they are on Scoot Henderson. We love Scoot Henderson.
No. The whole tribute video, right? They show Dave being drafted, young kid. Show him, becoming a father, having his kids, and all the game winners and stuff like that. And then it fades to black and then much like a movie that has a post-credit scene, just at the very end, it brings back up Cronin, and he goes, and I think you could all see how excited I am about Scoot Henderson.
Yeah.
From draft night. That would be amazing.
And then you show Scoot's 5 highlights this year. Just kidding. That was a low blow. I did not mean that. I'm sorry.
When Dame got traded, the Blazers put out 11 years of Dame time, and they were 11 highlights, and it was like one for each year. So obviously 2014 they have the 0.9, 2019 they have the bye, but I remember being so petty about that video that the Blazers put out. I'm like, really? It's 11 highlights for 11 years. That's it? That's all you're okay. So I will be very curious to see what kind of tribute video that they do. They know that they've got to, do the right thing and put together a really good package. I wish I could be there for that game. I would be bawling my eyes out, quite frankly. But can't wait to see the spectacle of that game for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous you're going.
For some reason, I don't feel like I'm going to be super emotional about it. It's just, yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm looking forward to going, and
I think once he's there and once the swell of the crowd,
you could be right.
The applause, and then once you see him like wave and stuff like that, I think it's going to hit you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I also anticipate Cronin having a family emergency that has been pre-planned weeks in advance that is going to lead to him not sitting courtside. He's going to be on the phone, Eric, working the phones for the trade deadline. Like, can't take my seat during the game.
João Pedro says if Cronin sits courtside, Dame's about to drop 100.
I would love it. I would love to see it. Do you anticipate that that kind of like the Bucks just giving him, like, here, go kill him? Like, do you anticipate that, or do you? I mean, look, they've got some things to work out. They kind of hit a tough stretch here where they're kind of they were nipping right at Boston's heels for a while, as you mentioned before, and now they're kind of pulling back to Philly and the rest of the pack in the East. So they've got some issues to work out. It's not like they're number one in the East that they could just roll into Portland, and have a certain game where it's like, okay, Dame, you just go wild tonight. Like they've got some things to work on.
I would say they would let him go crazy if I haven't watched several Bucks games where they just ignore him on the court, or where it
is crazy
when he gets shots, he's not hitting them like he's capable of doing either. So I don't know what the heck to make of the Bucks situation right now. I know.
Still averaging like 25 points a game. I don't know. Yeah. And he gets all their late game. We were talking about before the late game free throw situation when they're up and like dude knows how to get to the ball late in the game when they're playing the foul game.
Christopher Aquino says Rich looks like a nerdy clone of Steve Kerr. What do you think of that?
I mean, first of all, I thought Steve Kerr just was a nerd. But I mean, I don't really know how to react to that. It's very funny. People have got on here and said a lot of things. They've said like Pelinka, Rob Lowe.
Yeah.
Now we're down to Steve. Right, that same guy. Now we're down to Steve Kerr. I mean, Steve Buscemi is next, I'm sure. Like it just gets worse. This is what happens, kids. Don't get older. It's what happens. But I don't know. I don't really have any. I don't really have any opinion on Steve Kerr as far as looks goes or anything like that. So, but whatever you see, people. Right. I can't control it. What do you want to plan for the rest of the stream? Do you want to take some life advice? I love interacting with chat, so if we can get some questions, that'd be fun.
I would like to hear your story. You said you had a story before we went on air about a celebrity thing that you thought of that you thought I'd enjoy. So
I thought you would enjoy it. I don't know. I mean, with the makeup of chat, I mean, I know we got some older guys that follow you too. I don't know if this will resonate with the younger guys, but There was a time, Eric, where for a few years I traveled the country and gave speeches. It's a long story, but they were
Like,
very comedic and things like that.
like what kind of speeches?
Motivational speeches.
You were a
And
motivational speaker?
I used to be, yeah. And
Okay.
so,
No wonder you
so
want life advice segments. You're a life coach.
yeah, but my life advice is terrible. I love giving life
Oh, so
advice.
you
I
were
mean,
like, yeah, okay.
no, but no. Truth be told, I worked with a guy who had severe cerebral palsy, and so the two of us traveled together and went all over the country and gave speeches. And he had such a strong speech impediment because of his cerebral palsy, and so I would basically interpret for the crowd what he was saying. And we wrote a book. Like I ghost wrote a book with him, and we were like the best business book of the year for 2008. We got on ESPN Game Day. They did a piece about us because he went to USC. So we had a strong relationship with like Pete Carroll and the Trojans at USC, so on and so forth. So that leads me to my story. So we used to get sideline passes for the USC games, like for like their big games. Like we just had the Rose Bowl a week ago. I was on the field for the Rose Bowl when USC played Penn State a few years ago.
Is that the big Sam Darnold game? Or is that the other one?
No, Mark Sanchez was the quarterback at this time for USC, and got to stand and hang out with Doug Flutie for that game. Boy, was that guy super nice. That's not my person that I was telling you about. But anyway, so
Nugenics zone.
Yes, exactly. So
that's how our younger audience knows Doug Flutie.
There was a season where USC opened against Ohio State. Okay, huge like season opener, getting this powerhouse Ohio State to come to Los Angeles to play the Trojans, and so USC blew them out. It was a big win for USC. Everybody was at the game. There were all kinds of celebrities at the game and stuff like that. And like I said to Chad before, look, I'm an actor, but I don't really get like starstruck by any other people or anything like that. Like I look at them like they're just people, right?
Just me,
like
if you saw me in real life, right?
Who, you?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I saw you in real life, I mean, I'd be like, oh my god, like you're Eric from Blazers Uprise. But so I'm in the locker room. It's post game, and I'm waiting on Pete Carroll because Pete was going to come by and say hi and stuff like that. And there's people everywhere because this was such a big game. And I look over to the side, and there's an older guy, just kind of like he's wide-eyed and looking around, and all the players have already changed and stuff like that. So the players are interacting with like their girlfriends and their family and stuff like that. And it's this just kind of short, gray-haired white guy. And he's just kind of looking around, and he just looks really sweet and nice. And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, "Oh my god, oh my god, it's that guy! I can't believe it." And he sees me kind of look at him, and I was like, "Oh crap, he saw me!" Like I was like, "What am I doing? Like I don't get starstruck." He comes over to me, and he like puts his hand out, and he's like, "Hi, I'm Henry." It was Henry Winkler, who. To you and me is like a huge deal, because when we were kids and Happy Days was on the air, like he was the Fonz, like he was the coolest guy in the world. And Henry Winkler, like, telling me, "Hi, I'm Henry." I was like, "I know who you are, mofo. Like, I know." But he was like the sweetest guy, like of all celebrities I've ever met and interacted with, stuff like that. And some have been really cool. I've talked about George Clooney, was super cool. I've met Arsenio Hall. He was really cool to hang out with. But by far, the biggest sweetheart of a guy was Henry Winkler. And,
nice.
We got to talk a little bit of football. And, he was just, now younger fans probably know him from Barry. But
some people have no idea who you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, exactly. Like, who was that?
He's the coach and the water boy.
Yeah, he's the coach of the water boy. That's a good point. So anyway, so just
even that might be too old of a reference for some of these people.
he was like the one guy where when I met him, I was just like, oh my God, like, 5-year-old me would be freaking out right now. So anyway,
Did you go,
so
hey,
that was,
hey, hey.
no, I did not.
Oh, man.
I did not hit
I
the
wonder how many
Tupac.
times a day he does it. He gets that.
I did not talk about jumping the shark or anything like that. Like, did not go down that road. But he was super nice, really good guy. So
that's cool.
But that was my little story that I thought would probably only mean something to you, me, mute that bozo, and whoever else.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, do we have legit questions from? I
Well,
love seeing all the who's this?
Yeah.
Who is this?
Oh, him. He's hilarious, this Javon. Taylor Packer says, before we go, he wants to know your opinion on Scoot long term.
My opinion on Scoot long term. Man, I don't know. I would love to be wrong, but at this point, I think he's going to be like 75 to 80% of what we hoped. And that's my rookie season vibe right now. And that sucks. And that's not a condemnation of Scoot personally. I want great things for Scoot because it'd be great for us, but what I've seen and just kind of some of the things I've seen and, watching the league for a long time, 35 years now, and kind of seeing like what point guards do early in their career, even if they come in the league at 19 years of age. Now, obviously 2 years of G League are a little different, but if I had to say right now and just give you an honest assessment, I think he's ultimately going to be a very good player.
It's not generational.
I can't go generational with what I've seen so far, and I hope I'm wrong, but that's my honest opinion.
Alex
and 80% of what we hoped is still a lot and a very, very good player.
Rich wants.
Did you say Alex? Did you say
Alex? Alex Wolf wants to know if you'll sell him any of your Huskies.
No.
Okay.
No. I can't do that.
JP Savvy wants to know how you create money out of thin air. If we knew that, we wouldn't give that secret away.
They're called boobs, I think. What? What did I say?
What?
Look, I've lived in Los Angeles for a long time. I've seen some women here just turn nothing into gobs of money. Okay, so
they spend lots of money to turn something into nothing into something. But
I'm just saying you can make a lot of money without a lot to work with.
Rich, if you could bring back any past Blazers coach back to coach now, who would it be and why? Says Christopher Aquino.
So Christopher, I need a qualifier on this. Are we talking about like that coach in a time capsule, like he gets to come back at that age?
Yeah. Let's just say you could have them in their prime.
So it's not like we're digging up Dr. Jack. Or
no.
Okay.
That'd be weird.
I mean, this is so lame. But I mean, what do you think I'm gonna say?
Jack Ramsey.
No. Oh, okay, good. No, I bring back
Adelman?
Rick.
Yeah, Adelman.
Bring back Rick because Adelman's teams played an exciting brand of basketball. They were tough. They played really good defense. They were harmonious. They played for each other. They had each other's back, and they played a really enjoyable brand of basketball, getting out on the break and pushing before it was even in vogue back then. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of always my dream for the Blazers, that I want to see that kind of basketball. So, but again, that was in the height of me as a kid, like growing up basketball. And so I always believe that those things that get imprinted on your heart when you're a young person, like that just becomes this is what basketball is like. This is what basketball should be like. So Rick Adelman is my pick.
Danny P says second guy on the screen doesn't know anything, rolling on the floor laughing. And then, but someone else says,
Eric, are you going to stand for that? I think that's really insulting to you.
Why would you say that, Danny? I thought you were nice to me. Jeez.
Golly, man.
But then James Castro says, "Is that Matt Damon?"
Oh, please!
You'll take that, right?
I've heard that a couple of times. I don't really see it, but I mean, thanks for the. I guess. I mean, well, it depends. If he's like Matt Damon is the ugliest person in the world, that looks like Matt Damon. Matt Damon. But thanks. But go back to the so going to the guy. Look, the guy on the screen doesn't know anything. Let me just tell you. First and foremost, my girlfriend would totally agree with you. So you're not alone in thinking that. And if you look, when I guest on here, if you're expecting the same level of basketball analysis excellence that you get from Tori and Eric, I am obviously not your guy. I am your, I'm your animal balloons, at the party kind of guy. Like I'm just trying to spice things up a little bit and make it fun, but I don't take any offense to that. That's okay.
Alex Wolf says, "Is that Robert Pattinson?"
Oh God! Oh, here we go.
We had a Twilight question.
Just
someone,
a million.
Someone said earlier that they were envisioning you as his character in Twilight.
That's probably because my lighting sucks. Yeah. I'm kind of translucent here.
You should sparkle, Eric Olson asks, "What your favorite game you attended, or Blazers home game?" Assuming you've gone to a Blazer game.
I've only gone to one Blazer home game, growing up in West Virginia. So I saw the Rockets with Drexler play the Blazers in Portland. This was the 1996-97 season. So we were just kind of getting going with like Kenny Anderson and Gary Trent and Rasheed and Sabonis, obviously, that group. The Rockets ended up winning that game. Drexler had a real good game. I actually got close to the court and got Drexler's autograph, which was really cool. So it was kind of like a perfect experience for me to go to a home game. I also knew somebody who worked for the team, so I got to take a tour of the Rose Garden then at the time, then and forever. And got to meet and hang out with Snapper Jones, which was really cool. So Snapper was very nice. So yeah, that was my one experience. So that's my one experience. The best game I ever went to wasn't a Blazers game, but I saw the Rockets play the Bullets in Washington, and Barkley had 30, Olajuwon had 32, George Murison, 7'7" center for the Washington Bullets, had 30. I mean, he and Olajuwon were just going back and forth, and the fans were going crazy because they love Murison. So that was an amazing game. Chris Webber was on that team for Washington as well. So that was, and it came down to the very, very end. And Washington missed a shot. Barkley got the rebound, did his big high knees, running all down the court, celebrating, giving the throat sign to the fans that the game was over and stuff like that. And the fans went crazy booing him. It was just a blast. So I haven't seen a ton of games in person, but that was probably the most fun game that I ever saw. Probably the greatest game experience I ever had was a game that I didn't actually end up going to, but I won a calling contest on ESPN Radio 710 here, a singing contest, ironically enough, where you had to change the word.
Did you sing Silent Ayton?
No, I didn't sing Silent Ayton, but they wanted you to change the words to "I Love LA" to have something to do with the 2010 NBA Finals between the Celtics and the Lakers. Uh-huh. And so I changed the words. It was very funny. I had stuff in there about Ron Artest, missing three-pointers and stuff like that. And they loved it. And so they picked me as the winner. And it was 3:00 in the afternoon. And they said, "You've got like 2 hours to get down here to pick up the tickets for Staples Center." Well, I didn't, I'm not a Laker fan, so I didn't care about going to the NBA Finals. I wanted to watch it on TV. So I ran down there and picked up the tickets. And then, so I had 2 tickets, pretty good seats, to the NBA Finals, Game 6, okay? And so as soon as I picked up the tickets, I walked outside, and I'm right there at Staples Center, where all the fans are, stuff like that. I was like, I got two tickets, and these two white dudes in suits. I guess they like worked in downtown LA, and they had walked to the Staples Center, and they were going to buy tickets for the game. So they come over, and they're like, "How much are the tickets?" And I had seen these two black guys on the way who were scalping tickets, and they asked me before I picked up my tickets. They were like, "Hey, do you need tickets for the game?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm just gonna pick up tickets and stuff like that." I was like, "But good luck, guys. Good luck today." And they were like, "Oh, thanks." They were really nice. And then so when I came outside with my two tickets, and I said I got two, when these two businessmen come over, they're like, "Oh, how much are the tickets?" The two scalper guys, they come over, and they start a bidding war with these business dudes, okay? And all they were doing was driving up the price for me. So they were bidding against these business guys. They got these guys up to $800 a ticket. Nice. Okay? And I'm like kind of looking at them like, when are we pulling, like what is the go home moment for us, right? And so I think those guys said 700 a piece. And then the two business guys said 800 a piece. Those two black guys, they just turned and walked away. And then those two guys, they got 1,600. I got 1,600, and then I passed the two guys on the way out and gave them $100 each.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then they gave me the fist pound, stuff like that. I got in the car, I raced home, beat rush hour traffic, picked up a Domino's pizza, and got in my apartment as they tipped off the ball for Game 6.
Very nice.
And I just sat there. I was like, this is like... And then, of course, the Lakers blew out the Celtics that game. It wasn't even competitive. And I was really glad I didn't go to the game at that point.
Yeah.
But so that was probably my greatest game experience, and I didn't even go to that one. So that's a long-winded answer, but that's my answer.
Nice. Well, before we go, Taylor Packer wants to know if you'd be down to start a pyramid scheme with him.
Ha! No, because I could, you
don't have to seriously answer.
No, I mean, I'm not down for that. I could never, people have always looked at me and said, you'd be really good in sales. You'd be really good at this and that. And I'm like, but I can't look at people like what they could do for me and try to extract money from them. I probably would be a lot better in my acting career if I were more snaky like that. In terms of like your what you call it, your networking and things like that. But I've never looked at people like, what can this person do for me and things like that. So no, I will not do your pyramid scheme. But what is it? Email me, and maybe as I get older, I get a little more desperate.
He says we could have been the next Cutco man. Shaking my head.
Hi,
AJ.
Else? Anybody else? By the way, real quick, like I see Eric Olson, I saw him mute that bozo. Obviously, Alex Wolf, all you guys. Like, whenever I'm in the chat with you as a viewer, like I love seeing all you guys in chat. I'm so sorry with my vision, I haven't been able to really see all the names. The people who respond a lot, I'm able to catch your names, like Eric Olson. But just thank you guys so much for subscribing over to Rip City Retro and then being cool to me in chat whenever I'm in there. And it's great to see you guys. I'm sorry if I missed anybody's comments today, but, I'll try to do better.
Yep. And then...
Even though I don't know anything, but that's okay.
Yep. Well, thank you to you for joining me as well. It was awesome that you're able to do it. And
thanks.
Tori should be back for the show tomorrow.
Oh, good. Finally. Competent other guy.
Come on, don't take what one person says to heart.
Oh, I'm not. Look. Trust me.
Do you know how many haters we get?
Oh, I know. I mean, one thing that you learn living in Los Angeles, stuff like that, not everybody is gonna like you, and that's okay because I don't like everybody. So it what goes around comes around. So it's all good.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Blazers get the win. We talked about a win tonight, 134 to 127 in overtime. No tankathon because we didn't lose, so I don't have to fake my way through that without you guys being able to see it or mess up the scene because I tried to see if I could do it on my own. Anfernee with a huge game, 38 points, 11 assists, despite what it says on the top there. Tori went off what he saw. Big games from Duop. Sharpe played well. Brogdon had a good game off the bench. Challenges. Chauncey, yeah, let's go. Up to 10 wins, double-digit victories, says David Lester. Let's go. Thank you so much for joining me, Rich. And once again, if you want more of Rich, go to Rip City Retro's YouTube channel and subscribe to that. And then also, if you're not subscribed to this channel, of course, subscribe to it and leave a like on your way out. It really helps us out.
Hoots Crush as well.
Yeah. Our second channel, Blazers Uprise podcast, will be live tomorrow for Blazers Uprise Live, so we can get Tori's thoughts on the last two games. And then we'll also do picks against the spread. Something we haven't talked about at all in this show, we didn't mention that the Blazers cut Skylar Mays and Ish Wainwright yesterday, which is kind of surprising. But I
literally just poured one out for Skylar Mays. Okay. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I don't get why he can't stay on the roster.
I think maybe we'll bring him back after some transactions, but yeah, we can talk more about that on Blazers Uprise Live, why that happened and what the plan is. But look for Dwop Reith to get signed to that 14th spot. The Blazers have 13 days now to get another player in that position because they only have 13 under contract right now, so they need a 14th. So look for Reith to get promoted to the main roster, much like Mays did earlier in the season and has now been detracted from the roster.
Oh, well deserved by Dwop Reith. Yeah. Very happy about that.
And I don't know if then they'll bring Mays back on a two-way or not. They were kind of worried about Mays earlier in the season running out of games, being eligible as a two-way. But now that he's played a lot of games or not played many games on the actual roster, I think now they're more concerned with Reith running out of games because they actually need Reith right now with all the guards healthy. I would expect if Mays doesn't get picked up off waivers or by another team that they would bring him back in some capacity later this season. As for Ish Wainwright, I think they're just going to use that roster spot to possibly bring in an extra player to trade, because if we send multiple players out, there's some teams, like let's just say we traded Brogdon to the Knicks, we would have to take back two players, including Fournier as one of them, so there'd have to be another small contract, so you need a roster spot available to do that. But we can get more into that tomorrow on Blazers Uprise Live, so go check out our second channel, Blazers Uprise podcast, if you're interested in that. We usually go live somewhere between 3:30 and 4 on Mondays and Thursdays. And then we'll be back for the post-game show on Tuesday night after the Blazers take on the New York Knicks. So we'll get to see OG on his new team and maybe see Brogdon on his against his future team. I don't know. So we'll be back both Monday and Tuesday here, and look for Rich to maybe have a video sometime soon on his channel. Maybe we can record something soon too as well.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
But yeah, thank you so much for joining me, Rich, and thank you to everyone in chat for tuning in tonight or this afternoon on the post-game show. It was fun to talk about a win and not about a lack of effort and a 30-point blowout. So I'm happy that this stream was a little different than the last stream on Friday night. But yeah, I'm grateful for all of you who support the channel and tune in. I hope you have a good rest of your Sunday. So thank you, Rich, and thank you to everyone else. And
take care, gang.
Until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.